Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 12, Verse 39. Vishaktas Vite Puman Tam Vishrajit Bhavam Shrajitam Bhavam Dustaram Akritatmabi Konu Me Titaran Mayam Vishaktas Tat Twad Rite Puman Tam Vishrajitim Bhavam Dustaram Akritatmabi Konu Me Titaran Mayam Vishaktas Twadrite Puman Tam Vishrajitim Bhavam Dustaram Akritatmabi Meditated Maya Tam Shritin Bhavan Saram Akritatmabi Meditated Maya
Vishrajitam
Dustaram akritatmavihi.
Vish Konume titaram mayam Samsam Vishrajitaram Brahmam Dustaram Akritatmavi. Ka, what? No, indeed. May, my. Atitarat can surpass. Mayam, illusory energy. Vishakta, attached to material sense enjoyment. Tvatrite, except for you. Puman, person. Tan, such conditions. Tan, unto the materially attached persons. Visrijitim, in surpassing. Bhavan, reactions of material activity. Dustaram, very difficult to surmount. Akrita Atmabi, by persons unable to control their senses. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So Krishna is speaking to Lord Shiva. My dear Lord Shambhu, who within this material world but you can surpass my illusory energy? People are generally attached to sense enjoyment and conquered by its influence. Indeed, the influence of material nature is very difficult for them to surmount. Of the three chief demigods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwar, all but Vishnu are under the influence of Maya. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they are described as Mayi, which means under Maya's influence. But even though Lord Shiva associates with Maya, he is not influenced. The living entities are affected by Maya. But although Lord Shiva apparently associates with Maya, he is not affected. In other words, all living entities within this material world, except for Lord Shiva, are swayed by Maya. Lord Shiva is therefore neither Vishnu Tattva nor Jiva Tattva. He is between the two. Mangina Tamaranda Syagina Agina Shalakaya Chakshura Militamena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vajanam Pangam Lagam Tayu Takripaka Shivandina Tarana Vanchakalpa Trubishcha Kripasinduya Vichapatita Nambhavaya Vishnu Mujradaya Krishna Stai Buddha Samadhi Bhakti Vikas Swami Namane Namaste Mujradaya Krishna Stai Buddha Samadhi Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Charane Nivasesha Sanyari Pashata Deshtarane. So Lord Shiva, Prabhupada speaks at the end of the purport, he's in a special category of his own. So there's Jiva Tattva and there's Vishnu Tattva, which means Krishna, all Krishna's expansions and avatars and energies. And then there's the Jiva Tattva, who are us, the living entities, and we're the ones who are in the fallen condition, but there are many who are not in the spiritual world, the Jiva Tattva. So the Jiva Tattva is actually one of the energies of Krishna also. But we, from our point of view, we see it separately because there's Krishna and there's us. And we have to understand philosophically our position. It's necessary to have a philosophical understanding of reality so that we can overcome the other one of Krishna's energies, which is the Maya Shakti, which bewilders us. So that's what Krishna's talking about, or Prabhupada rather, is talking about in this purport. He's saying that Lord Shiva is in a special category where he is not influenced by Maya, which means the illusory energy. So we say, well, but Lord Shiva just became completely bewildered. He completely lost control of his senses. If you're aware of the storyline in this pastime, you say he just completely lost it. Even his wife was there. He ran after Mohini Murti. He didn't have any sense control at all. But actually that wasn't ordinary Maya. That was Krishna himself. That was Krishna's internal energy bewildering Lord Shiva. He's not, Lord Shiva is not affected by Maya. So he's actually the husband of Maya. Parvati is his wife. So Lord Shiva is known to be an example of a dhira. Dhira. The Sanskrit word means dhira, means sober, very sober. Somebody who's not disturbed by the material energy. If your mind is completely fixed, you're not influenced by the material energy. The material energy will come and make a proposal, but you won't be influenced because you'll say, this is just an illusion. I won't go for that. Thank you very much. I remember one devotee, he described it as somebody comes and knocks on your door. But you don't go and answer the door. Yeah. You just, if you ignore them, they'll go away. Nobody home. Yeah. So Maya can come and knock on the door, which she does regularly, every 10 seconds or so. Sorry, But a dhira is somebody who's above all these things. And Lord Shiva is a classic example of somebody who's... So Prabhupada, he described Lord Shiva's... it's a pastime between Lord Shiva and Parvati. But Prabhupada, he explains it nicely in a conversation. So the situation was that the demigods needed somebody to help them kill the demons. Yeah? The demigods were having trouble, as they often do, with the demons. So they thought if Lord Shiva could have a son, he would be very powerful, and that very powerful son would be able to smash the demons. So they thought, well, that's a good proposal, but Lord Shiva's deep in meditation because his wife died. His wife committed what's called sati, which is like, you could say in one sense it's a suicide, but it's not a suicide. It's something more. It's like a yogic trance. That people can go into a yogic trance and they can cause their body to go on fire. So she was very, very upset with her father, Daksha, and so she decided to give up the body that was connected to him. So she set herself on fire by a yogic trance, by yogic meditation. So Lord Shiva, when he heard this, he was upset because he's attached, as a husband, he's attached to his wife. Of course, he's not attached in a mundane, illusory way, but so he didn't like it that his wife had left her body. So he went into meditation. And so his meditation was going on and on and on. And the demigods were saying, well, we need him to, to have this child so that, to help us, help all the demigods. He's supposed to be, Mahadev, the greatest of all the demigods, so he should be able to help. Meanwhile, his wife took birth again as Parvati. So the demigods went and they said, you, please, Parvati, you go and worship your husband. So she was worshipping in a very intimate way. She was, like actually worshipping his male organ, his genital. She was actually offering flowers, and touching that part of his body. Prabhupada describes it, So the wife of Lord Shiva, Dakshayani, committed suicide in the Daksha Yagya. She heard blasphemy of her husband, so immediately she gave up her body. My father, you have given this body, therefore you are claiming so much from me. I give up this body. So she gave up her body, and the next birth she was born as the daughter of the Himalayan king Parvati. And after her death, she was the daughter of Daksha Maharaj. Lord Shiva was engaged in a meditation very deep. Now the problem was how to wake up Lord Shiva from meditation and engage him again with Parvati. Nobody dared. So Parvati was engaged to worship the genital of Lord Shiva. He was in meditation and he could not be awoken. Kalidas Kavi, it must be an acharya who Prabhupada quotes, here is Dhira. Here is Dhira. A young girl touching the genital of Lord Shiva, and he is not agitated. Adhira. Dhira means there is cause of agitation, but one is not agitated. That is called Dhira. And Adhira, everyone. There is cause of agitation in so many ways. In our this movement, Krishna Kirtana Gana Nataparo, if we remain engaged in Krishna Kirtana, Gana, Natana, Paro, then Dhira, Dhira, Janapriyo, both the Dhira and the Adhira will enjoy this Krishna Kirtan. So this, our movement, is for the Dhira. And if the Adhira, means a person who's not sober, the person who's uncontrolled, and if the Adhira comes, if he also joins this movement, the Adhira becomes also Dhira. So that's just Lord Shiva as a Dhira. So Adhira means disturbed by illusion, which means that we see what is illusory is real, which is the whole material world. The whole material world is Krishna's illusory energy. We see it as real according to how, if you're very spiritually advanced, you won't see it as being very real at all. If you're a pure devotee, you would maybe not see anything real. Somebody asked Prabhupada, what do you see, Prabhupada? What do you see when you look at the world? He said, I see some dead bodies flapping around. Dead bodies flapping around. Because he knows that the body is not alive, it's not essentially alive. The body is actually just appears to be alive because the soul is there. It's actually the soul that's alive. So we see the material world as this whole huge global COVID phenomena. Everybody's, wearing their mask and following all the different protocols, and now they want to vaccinate everybody, and it's all based on this illusory fear. Yeah? Of course, you have to follow, standard social procedures because other illusory things will kick in if you don't. Like you might find yourself in an illusory mental hospital or whatever. If you don't cooperate with the illusory authorities of the illusory world. But it's all based on the fear, this fear of death. So fear of death is, if you understand, which is a fact, that the soul is eternal, then why should there be fear of death? Yeah. Why? Why would we be fearful of death if we know we're eternal? So there's one shloka in Bhagavad Gita, at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, that mentions this word, dhira. Does anybody know? Dhira's Tatra Namurti. Yes. Dehinosmin yatadahe komaram yovanam jira. And then tata dehantara praptiya dhiras tatra namuyate. Dhira, the sober, tatra, thereupon, na muyate. So that means a person who's sober, he's not bewildered by death. He's not bewildered by the prospect of death. So who isn't fearful of death? Yeah? Who doesn't have some anxiety for their material well-being, or some worrying about their pension, or worrying about health care when they're old, or all these things. They're very much realities. It's because we are not completely transcendental to the material energy. Okay, it's illusory energy, but we are not transcendental to the illusion. We are not dhira, not yet. We continue the process, we can become. So this is the goal. This is actually the goal of Krishna consciousness. The goal of Krishna consciousness is not to have, a very nice eco farm, or to have, very nice yoga classes, or to have a wonderful vegetarian diet, or the goal is actually to become transcendental to the illusory energy. And then, as that's after that first step, is then to develop love of God, which is very lofty, very, very lofty goal. People think this, the shloka, Dehinosmin yatade. Okay, yeah, I know that shloka. Yeah, so youth to adulthood to old age, and then you die. Yes. But actually, to be detached from these things is a high platform. So we are disturbed by the material energy in so many ways, in so many different illusory ways. So what to do? What is the prescription for somebody who is bewildered, who recognizes? You can recognize, yes, I am bewildered, and I'm suffering because I'm bewildered. But then what to do about it? An intelligent person will say, yes, this is my situation, but then what to do? What to do about this, my being in this illusory energy which is causing so much suffering day after day and probably life after life. And as I make some really strong moves to get out of the material energy, I'm going to be suffering life after life. So the idea is that we take instruction from somebody who's a Dhira, somebody who's outside the material energy. There's one verse, Prabhupada picked out the word Mai in the purport. And he talked about this word Mai, and it comes in this verse, Daivahi Ashaguna Mai, Mama Maya Duratya, Mama Viye Prapajante, Maya Mitam Tarantite. This material energy, this illusory energy, is hard to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So to get out of the Maya, of being connected with Maya, we have to connect with somebody else instead. Because we're too tiny on our own. We're teeny weeny, infinitesimal. So we can't just get out of material energy. Material energy is stronger than us. So in order to get out, we need somebody who's stronger than the material energy to help us, to give us shelter, to give us instruction. So that's how the surrender to Krishna takes place. Should we want to do it, we follow the instructions of the person who isn't bewildered. Yeah? You take instruction from somebody who isn't bewildered, and it's a matter of time, then we will become also free. But this is the challenge. The challenge is not to listen to the illusory mind, but instead to listen to the instructions of the Dhira. I'll just read a bit of the purport. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Baddha, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy. Because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which a living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by the divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. And then Prabhupada quotes, I don't know where the quote is from, but it just gives the translation. Although Maya is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshvara, the supreme controller. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. So it seems a little strange, you think. You're tied up by ropes of illusion. I think ropes would be something more tangible, yeah. But ropes of illusion. So the illusion's actually in the mind, that we are separate from Krishna. We are the enjoyer. These are the illusions that we attach to, we don't want to give up. Okay, so the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. That makes sense. If you're tied up by hands and feet, you need somebody to untie you. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna, or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get out from the clutches of a stringent material nature. So our situation is very serious, but there is an accessible way of getting out of this situation. So Prabhupada presents this as a problem, and this is a solution. Okay. Anybody got any comment or objection?
I have a comment. I was thinking about this during Chitraleela's lesson yesterday.
Yeah.
And she used the example of magnets being magnetized to Krishna. And it just occurred to me, you need to visualize this. You need to look at me and listen to what I'm saying as well. If this is the North Pole,
Yes.
and this is the South Pole.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say the South Pole is the spiritual world, and the North Pole is the Maya. You think of yourself as you're a little magnet in the middle. Your North Pole is with the North Pole, and your South Pole is the South Pole. You're like Vishnu. You're Shiva. You're in the middle. So if you're in the spiritual world and you head towards the Maya, the poles, they push apart because your north is pointing to the north. So you actually become energetically inverted, and then you're attracted to the Maya.
Yeah.
And you can't find a solution to get out because everything you see is Maya because you're attracted to it. So you need to invert yourself back again, and then you'll start being pulled towards the spiritual world.
Yeah. So that's an analogy, huh? But it hinges on the free will. Yeah.
Yes.
It hinges on the free will. We always have that free will of whether to approach Krishna or whether to stay in the material world. And sometimes it seems like we don't actually have that much free will. Sometimes we're just so heavily attracted to some particular aspect of the material world that we don't seem to have much free will at all. But the more we use our free will positively, the more free will, we will more a free will we will have. Yeah. Every time you misuse your free will, you become more and more covered, more and more illusioned. Every time we use our free will properly, so gradually, we will progress. If we keep making the right choices, so it's like every moment is a crossroads, and you keep choosing the right path, the right path, the right path, the right path. But there are only two options, you're right. There's the North Pole and the South Pole. I guess so. Yeah, to see if I can answer it.
Is there any difference between taking shelter in the devotee and taking shelter in Krishna?
There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be a difference. If a person's actually representing Krishna, he's actually representing the parampara. There is no difference. If the person's a via medium, but you have to be very careful who you hear from. Because people will say things and they'll sound impressive. And they sound right even. But you have to say, is that in Prabhupada's books? Or you can look it up. Is it in Prabhupada's books? So somebody who's actually following Prabhupada, what he says is, should be completely in line with Prabhupada. And that is a person's, in ISKCON, a person's only adhikar, his only qualification to speak is that he's actually representing Prabhupada. Otherwise, what qualification do we have? You have to. That's why I like to read from Prabhupada's books. So I think, well, at least I'm not cheating if I read from Prabhupada's books. But people will, I have personal experience, people will say things that are not in Prabhupada's books. Yeah. It may not mean to be, deliberately misleading you. It may be, even innocent. But they will say things. So you have to check. My advice to young devotees is, please check. Read Prabhupada's books very thoroughly. Be really, really aware of what's in the books. And if in doubt, just, have a little bit like a filter, have a filter in the brain where you can check things that people say against what Srila Prabhupada says. Hare Krishna.
Comment just about what you said. Reading the Bhagavad Gita, just reading one sloka and reading the purport, it feels more alive than my body and the bed I'm sitting on, the room I'm sitting in, my whole life. Just this one little thing, there's more life in just this little text.
I know, because it's reality.
Yeah, it's the real reality.
Yeah, it's reality. It's spiritual reality is alive and sentient, and the books are alive and sentient, and they reciprocate. So everything else does, it pales. And the problem is that you get, it's maybe not a problem, but the problem is that you get addicted to the books. You get addicted to that feeling of being connected with the spiritual energy. Mm-hmm. It's a sign that you make progress. You're making progress because you realize, I'm connected with the spiritual energy. This is what I want. This is what I've been wanting for so long, yeah? I've been going after this and after that, and my mind is still attracted to this and that, but actually what I really want is to connect with Krishna. It's Krishna, the person. It's the person. It's not impersonal. It's not an impersonal energy. It's a person who's... And another fascinating thing is every time you connect with this, it's different. It's not always exactly. There's some similarity, but it's not. Every time you read a purport, every time you read or you hear Prabhupada speaking, there's something, because Krishna is Navayovanam, means always fresh, always new. It's not. Every day Krishna looks different. He's been here for, I don't know, nearly 50 years. Every day he looks different, but it's the same Krishna. You can see it's clearly the same Krishna, but he always looks fresh and new. So the spiritual energy, like the books also are like this, It's always something, a fresh experience. It's nothing, Prabhupada used the expression, nothing hackneyed. There's a material energy. You open a newspaper and it's like, even if you haven't opened a newspaper for a year, it's like, it's the same old, ads. This one killed this one, this is this, and this is this. And there may be some kind of mental titillation for like 30 seconds, but then you think, it's just...
Same, different day.
Yeah, the same things, but maybe different names. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the spiritual energy is, you feel nourished. You have a feeling of being nourished by the spiritual energy. Does that answer okay? Yeah. It's really important, to have proper spiritual instruction because your spiritual life depends on it. If you're misguided, if you get misguided in spiritual life, your whole spiritual life can go off. Hare Krishna.
It's interconnected, my question.
Yeah.
I had already answered part of it. So, Srila Prabhupada said to we are Adira, to become Dira, we need to take shelter of a Dira person. So then my question was how to recognize who is a Dira, especially that many times I heard that only a pure devotee, they can know who is pure devotee.
Yes.
So, and also the books, okay, I understand this point that we should make a filter, but it seems that we don't all understand Prabhupada's books in the same way.
No,
So
it's a
the
big
filter
issue.
I will make,
Yeah.
it will be my own filter based on Prabhupada's book.
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how to do it?
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. I don't think there's any easy answer apart from thoroughly studying yourself and praying to Krishna to get good association. I don't think there's any okay, that's what we do. I don't think it's like that, you know. It's because we're talking about something that's very subtle. We're talking about something that's very pure, and it's something that it's illusory because in this world, at every moment, the material energy is trying to, you know, cover us back over again and cover over the process. We don't want these conditioned souls getting out, you know, keep them in the material energy. The whole atmosphere of the material energy is to keep us here. So to find that thing, you know, that way forward, it's like, no, it's a whole endeavor, you know, how to find that way out and not to be misled. I mean, I've much my whole spiritual life has been trying to find out, you know, the proper association, actual Siddhanta, and somebody who understands the Siddhanta and, you know, can explain the Siddhanta to me, and you know, to actually find that. And it has to be somebody who also inspires you, who's like-minded. It's rare. It's like a really rare thing to find somebody who's qualified, yeah, qualified. Because, you know, we're Kanishta Adhikaris. Maybe not you, Prabhu, maybe not Nitya Sutta Prabhu, but no, we don't know, exactly as you say, we don't know what's good for us and what's not good for us, and who's a Dhira, who's not a Dhira. So we can be tricked, we can be fooled, we can be cheated. Even in the name of, sorry to say, but even in the name of ISKCON, we can be misled.
There is a way you can tell.
By the fruit, you can tell the tree. Yeah. But that can take time.
A Dhira, and Adira. Adira is not, and Dhira is.
Yeah, Adira is somebody who's not sober, but Dhira is somebody who's sober.
So a sober person is only interested in getting you sober as well.
Yeah.
They may trick you, but they'll only trick you in order to make you sober.
Trick you in a very compassionate, spiritual way.
It's all mercy. It's all to get you to that state.
Yeah, but you have to have faith in the person to allow them to do that to you.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And patience, and have a little bit of a bigger view.
Yeah. I mean, this is just another huge thing to mention right at the end of the class, but in ISKCON there's been a lot of trouble with gurus falling down. Yeah. People have taken the position of guru but haven't been, and they've performed the position, you know, they've performed the duties of a guru but haven't maintained it. So there's been a lot of problems. But one of the good things about that is that people have become very
Wary?
wary, but more like aware of who actually is a guru. You know, and what are the qualifications of a guru, and who should I be hearing from? Because if everybody had just sailed along, you know, being gurus, and we just sailed along being, you know, blissful followers, nobody would have really thought about the, you know, the guru tattva, which is another whole thing, guru tattva, the whole complicated Siddhanta to understand. So we've all become a lot more, because you actually have to become very mature, yeah, as a person, very mature in your spiritual understanding to get through this whole, you know, Kali Yuga of confusing things that go on, you know, even in the name of spiritual life. Yeah. But somebody who's actually represents Prabhupada, they're a guru. They're not a guru otherwise. You know? They're not a guru unless they represent Prabhupada. If the person, he or maybe even she, says something that's not in Prabhupada's books, then you have to say that person's actually not a guru. You don't have to go around and make a big, but you can just quietly quietly take your leave, You have to seek out that person who's representing Prabhupada. If that's what you want. You actually have to want, you see, because there's the cheaters and the cheated. You know that example that Bhaktisiddhanta gives? No, okay, it's a little bit amusing example. But in India, they have a tradition of if a lady can have a child by a sadhu, another saintly person, like a devotee, yeah? She considers that as a very good thing. If I can have a child by a sadhu, my child will be saintly. So the ladies will sometimes go to holy places, hoping to meet a sadhu who will give her a child. But then there's men who think, aha, there are ladies looking for sadhus. I'll just dress up as a sadhu and there we are, No responsibility, I can enjoy. And so it's the cheaters and the cheated. Yeah. So this is the whole material world. So there's, the four defects of the living entity. One of them is to cheat. To cheat. I present myself as a spiritual authority, and actually I'm not really, but it's fun, I like to do it, and you're gullible enough to listen, and you might get some money, you might get some followers even, But you actually can get whole organizations of people, all the people want to just be cheated, and then there's somebody cheating them. And they're all happy together, They're all just being spiritual, but it's not really spiritual at all. It's just the idea of something spiritual, but nobody's false ego is disturbed. Mm-hmm. We can just carry on and be spiritual, so-called. But nobody's going to make any progress towards being a Dhira. Anyway, I think I have said enough. I won't be sanctioned. This is all on the camera. I'm going to be sanctioned. This is going to be Bhagavati. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.